Thank you, Senator Kane. Senator Cramer, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chair Creedon and Senator Kyle, for your incredible work, and to all the members of the commission. And like Senator Kane, first of all, I agree with him 100% on what he just said with regard to education. We've got to work on that, for sure. And while your commission found obviously a lot of unity, even unanimity almost, at least consensus, I think you sense the same here. This rostrum has been pretty committed. You communicate both technically and passionately the obvious, what seems obvious to a lot of us, demand. And you've challenged us, Senator Kyle, and I appreciate this, that with the task of convincing our constituents where they may not agree, largely because they may not know. I'm sometimes stunned by how little some people know about recent history, much less, ancient history, much less what to expect going forward. However, the threat of the enemy is getting clearer every day to just about everybody, one would think. So the demand should not be hard for us. The prioritization, I think, is. I especially appreciate the way you've not ignored or not siloed nuke and non-nuke. You've not ignored that non-nuclear is an essential part. One of the things I worry about, and this is where I want to get to a thought or a question and get your thoughts. Do we make a mistake when we take the #1 priority of nuclear modernization, the #1 priority of the #1 priority in terms of our responsibilities of securing the nation, defending the nation, and silo its budget in the services rather than set it apart as the #1 priority of defending this country? Because I worry a little bit that the priority of nuclear modernization, particularly in this high inflation, fast inflation moment we live in, means that we're going to modernize our nukes, our deterrent, at the expense of non-nuclear. And silos are a common problem for me, frankly, in the Pentagon. Should we be looking at finding a better way, a more transparent way to demonstrate the cost of all of this and not cannibalize non-nuclear defenses by modernizing nuclear? Senator Kyle first, and then Ms.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Cramer, well, you're right back to where I started, and I think you're absolutely right. We've got to find ways to discuss this. Our commission actually makes several recommendations that go to your point. First thing I would say is that remember that in talking about strategic deterrence, we're not just talking about nuclear. As a matter of fact, we believe that the first thing we've got to do is have a conventional capability which is so dominant that no party would ever consider a nuclear attack against the United States. So we hope to avoid war with our conventional capability. That shouldn't be sacrificed in any way. But if you don't have the ultimate weapon, the nuclear dominance, then you don't have that element that underpins all of the rest. And that's why our secretaries of defense have said that it's the #1 priority. In many ways, our government hasn't backed that up. The people that used to be responsible for that were general flag officers. It's now far down the ranks. It's your colonels and majors. It's not exactly a big career opportunity path for you to be involved in this part of our national defense. So it is not emphasized, and as a matter of fact, it becomes kind of the stepchild. So no wonder it lags when it should be the top priority. Among the recommendations we make, we think that the Armed Services Committee should have a closer look at the budgets here rather than a subcommittee of the Appropriations Committee, which also deals with water projects. There's one example. Mm-hmm. We think that the Armed Services Committee should bring the Secretary of Energy candidates before them, not for a vote, but at least to ask them a few things. Do they appreciate, as Secretary of Energy, that their #1 responsibility is our nuclear deterrent? It's not oil wells or whatever. There are several things that we can do internally here in the Congress to reemphasize the importance of the nuclear deterrent. And finally, I think it's always been a problem when NNSA was created that secretaries of defense from both parties have seen that as a stepping on their toes. They'd rather retain the jurisdiction within the department. And we're trying to elevate the NNSA head to a higher position within the department to indicate that we believe this is that important. And the Secretary of Energy has to acknowledge that NNSA is a silo within the department. It's not under the thumb of the Secretary of Energy. So there are a lot of different things that we say in here which, if implemented, will help to elevate the work of NNSA and the nuclear enterprise generally to the position that everybody says it has, but doesn't really back up.
You know, I know I'm out of time, so I'm going to wrap up by just saying, one of the things I worry about in this entire discussion is that we're somewhat deteriorating not just our nuclear deterrent, but our reputational deterrent a little bit by having this transparent conversation that we must have. But I will tell you all that last week, General Alvin and I were in North Dakota for a couple of days, spent a lot of time at Minot, saw those 60-year-old missiles in the control center and those 60-year-old bombers that they're carrying LRSO and all of that. And I just want anybody that's listening to know they're still very capable. Be very cautious. We are still very capable while we transition. Thank you both very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Cramer. Senator Rosen, please.